Thank you, everyone. Welcome, and thank you for taking time of your busy days. We know, days are very busy for everyone. So I hope we can make it valuable for you, and we will allocate time at the end for Q&A. So if you've got any questions, feel free to jot them in the chat box, or if you just want to wait till the end, you can ask them yourself, no problem. So the topic today, as many of you have seen in our webinar post, is grants, government grants, and we call it Made Easy for Productivity Improvement Programs. We're going to be hosting it myself. My name is Julia Novik. I'm a president of Lean Advisors, and I've got my colleague here, Larry Cote, who is the founder of Lean Advisors. So with that being said, we'll just go quickly to our agenda. I hope you can see my whole screen because I'm just going to move the faces. Yes, so our agenda is we're going to start talking about what are these productivity improvement grants, what's the mystery behind them. And we'll talk a little bit about the government funding, like what's the goal of these grants and the funding. Some of our experience with a lot of the companies that we've seen over the years, like why more companies apply for grants, cover a little bit about that. We'll talk a little bit about ourselves, who are Lean Advisors, how did we get here, and we'll talk in more specifics about these particular government grants that we will be presenting here today, about the application process a little bit and how we support you in the whole process of application approval. And then we'll go about, and I'll change it over to Larry to talk more about how Lean Advisors, or the history of Lean Advisors, in terms of how we help businesses. Why do we talk about productivity improvement programs? What do our clients do with these programs? And at the end, we'll leave time for Q&A. All right. So welcome, everyone. So what are the productivity improvement programs that government funds? It's basically a program that many of you might have heard about or have potentially used it. Or for those who haven't heard about this program, it's been around since 2015. So it's been pretty much 7 years or so. And the program was developed by the government to support employers in developing their workforce, to identify various skill gaps in the staff and the management, and try to help to address those by developing their people. And in order to close the gaps and make their staff more successful and make their companies more successful. There's a variety of different trainings that the government covers under these grants. They fall into sort of these 4 categories that you see here. Some of the programs help people to get better employability or develop certain skills that make them more competitive in the marketplace. Some of the training could be for new hires. Then there's various career development trainings. We're talking about, say, project management, lean certifications, all of these various trainings that help you to enhance your skills. Maintenance and refresher skills for those who may be in a technical fields or need refresher courses, and essential skills, which could be, any skills required for further development. Could be leadership development, management skills, and so on. And the kind of companies that are eligible for this funding, really, it's very extensive. It applies to any company that is either privately run corporation. It applies for nonprofits, for non-for-profit organizations, and it applies to even international large companies that may be publicly listed. They're still eligible for this funding as long as they operate in Ontario and licensed to operate in Ontario. So this is sort of going back to why don't all companies apply for grants? I found that when we as Lean Advisors have been working with clients on productivity improvement programs and trainings that we've been doing for 20 plus years. When these grants became available, we've realized that a lot of our clients haven't really been taking advantage of the grants that are really grants that are there for them, for their companies. Some of the reasons that we've been seeing is, a lot of the clients or employers just see grants or a lot of this paperwork that comes with it. It is a massive amount of paperwork. I wouldn't fool anybody to say that the administration of applying for something like this takes quite extensive amount of time on our clients. And so a lot of the folks are very busy, and quite honestly, people don't have the time in their day to be focusing on that kind of paperwork, or it's very difficult to manage it. So a lot of the folks we found were not even aware that these grants were available, that they're eligible for them. So that's where, we've realized that it's not always known. And some of the folks have applied in the past to various government grant programs and were turned down, not necessarily for this particular one, but I think some of the people we see, the experience of being turned down, they don't want to go back and reapply. So we are here, Lean Advisors, we're here, we've been addressing all those issues and reasons for our clients, and we help them to make this process very simple and painless as much as we can. So these grants, as I mentioned, some of you may have been exposed to them or know about them. These are Canada Ontario job grants that have been around for a long time. They may, just like any government program, they may be around, they may be redirecting the funds to other type of programs. So if anything, I encourage a lot of our clients to take really advantage of this now, because government grants, they're here and then they disappear. So, if you've got a lot of folks and people that you want to develop, train, you want to create, take your company to the next level, this is the time you want to take advantage of it. The way the funding works, they do make it eligible per participant. So if you've got, say, 20 staff that you want to put through productivity improvement program and training, you can get up to $15,000. But truthfully, our rates are anywhere between $3,000 to $4,000 per person. So if you've got 50 to 60,000 of funding, the government will cover a significant portion of it, which I'll go through in the next slide. Eligible activities, of course, all kinds of training activities are eligible for this. And the applicants, as I mentioned, any company located in Ontario is eligible for it. There's no deadline for application. It goes throughout the whole year, but every fiscal year, as the government gets closer to the end of their fiscal year, which runs April 1st to March 31st, there's less funding available. So certainly when you plan your activities or your budget and your strategic priorities for the year, I always say, think of the government's timeline. It may not necessarily fall together with your timeline, but if you reserve funds, these government funds, say between April and October, you can use them for the next, 52 weeks usually. So we always say, just put it as part of your strategic budgeting, reserve the funds and use them at a later date. So the funding amounts, the way it works, the companies that are over 99 employees, the government pays 50% and the employer pay the other 50%. For any company below 99 employees, government actually covers 83% of the cost. So the employer only pays 17% of the overall cost. So what are what are we doing here, Lean Advisors? Well, we've been productivity improvement experts for 25 plus years, and Larry will talk more about what that means, but we've been working with companies from small to large throughout North America. And our work has always been around, how do you make your company more competitive, more profitable? How do you increase capacity and help your people to become more effective and efficient in their work? And in terms of the government grants, we naturally kind of fell into it because our clients have been asking us to help them. And so what we've developed is really a skill to coordinate and support all of the administration of the funding, knowing what, how to apply, what information required, and so on. As you can see by the numbers, we've been quite successful. All of our clients have been getting almost 100% approval rate. I think we only had one company one time that didn't get approved, but for their own specific reasons. And our clients have received over 10 million in funding awarded over the number of years that I guess the funding has been around. And in terms of the lead time or the amount of time that we save for helping you with this process, I would say we save you 95% of time per application because we really take care of most of it. So who are lean advisors? So as I mentioned, we have been in a training consulting in process improvements, productivity improvements for many, many years, but really our business falls into 4 buckets. We provide a variety of different trainings, depending on the company, depending on your needs. We usually meet with yourselves, with management teams, and do initial assessments of where the needs and gaps are, and when we design and customize the training towards those needs. We certainly consult, and when we say consult, we actually work with your teams, facilitating your teams through the change or various initiatives and process improvements that your teams may be working on. And the coaching is, don't want to underestimate, a big part of our offering where we help your staff continuously improve and be there by their side, coach them through it. And as I mentioned, grant support, that's became, I would say, a department in itself where we help our clients with various grant support activities. So I'll pass it over to my colleague, Larry Cote, who's the founder of Lean Advisors. And I think, Larry, it's important for everybody here to understand, how did we get here and why are we talking about productivity improvement grants? What is Lean Advisors' story around that?
Okay. Yeah, I'll of course try to keep it brief because these Zoom calls, you got to condense what you're trying to talk about. But if I can take you back, if you have some patience with me, I'll take you back. Prior to starting Lean Advisors, I was pretty lucky. I got to work with some amazing corporations, Magna International, Canada Post Corp, the Lean Enterprise Institute. With Magna, as a general manager, I actually had a unique situation from the standpoint I got involved in the actual design and the layout and the equipment in the facility. And this facility was a seating facility, supplying seats to General Motors on a just-in-time basis. Nothing was called lean at that time. Just-in-time in those days was basically General Motors would tell you 5.7 hours before the actual vehicle that was being built hit the seat install station. They would notify us what seats they want, the trim levels, the options, the number, and so on. And we had to build that and get that to them on time. And one thing you don't do is shut General Mills down. So I learned a lot from that environment. Also learned that you could make a ton of money if you didn't have inventory and you had flow in place. Then I was lured away from there to Canada Post Corporation. They brought me in and said, can you bring the lean concepts into Canada Post? I was hired as a corporate manager, running all of engineering, maintenance, and quality, but the mandate was get lean into Canada Post. And of course, large logistics distribution operation all across the country, 50,000 employees. I found out from those two companies that, interestingly enough, this whole idea of flow and getting rid of waste and so on actually was now called lean methodology, it was transferable. I mean, it worked in manufacturing, worked in a non-manufacturing, and I found that it effectively removed waste. So that was an exciting time for me. And while I was at Canada Post, I was attending MIT taking some courses, and it just so happened, I got lucky, Jim Womack, who's co-author of Lean Thinking, was a guest lecturer, and he was talking about Lean Thinking, the book. And after the class, I went down and I talked to him, and we had coffee, and one thing led to the other. And I convinced him that he should come up to Canada and actually help me transfer the lean methodology into Canada Post. We spent a year or two doing that, and near the end of that, he said, look, I want to set up the Lean Enterprise Institute. Would you be willing to come down and help me do that in Boston? And of course, I jumped at that opportunity. Now, LEI was interesting because it was basically building knowledge globally about lean, so training materials and theory. And then while I was there, I recognized I like theory and it's important, but my passion was to adapt and apply the concepts and the methodology. So all of that just was kind of the beginning of where I was going. So I started Lean Advisors. And for the past 25 years, I've had the privilege of working with our senior team of experts to transform organizations all over North America, both public, private, using the concepts and methodologies of lean. We've worked in manufacturing, aerospace, logistics, distribution, as I mentioned, healthcare, government, you name the sector, likely we've worked in there. We're proud of what we did. Never, ever, or I should back up, we were successful with every corporation or organization that we worked with. And most of those companies were medium, small, if I can put them into those categories. But in the last few years, we began to work with smaller companies and businesses and adapting lean into their unique situation and needs. And in order to do that, we had to work with colleges, et cetera, because there were grants out there that helped the smaller businesses utilize our services. The results with the small companies exceeded our expectations. We found working with the owners, the decision makers, in a small setting was a game changer. We got results quicker than with larger companies, and we discovered the changes were sustainable. It's important to note, and this will just a general statement, whether it was a small, medium, or large company, we discovered that the amount of waste in these organizations was 75% plus, without exception, 75% non-value. And using the tools, the lean tools, the methodology, we found that we could quickly remove 30 to 50%. So that was exciting. And I guess to put it in a statement, lean allows you to do more with what you have. Do it faster, do it better, less cost, and it makes you more competitive and more profitable, of course. Julia, I thought I'd give one example of companies we've worked with, if that's okay. I don't want to take up all your time, but it was an automotive repair business, and the company name was Auto Service Kingston, owned by Steve Bernard. I first met Steve, and at that time he was scrambling. His shop was disorganized, morale was low. And don't get me wrong, Steve is running a decent business. He's a great mechanic, he's a great leader, he's energetic, but he was totally frustrated. He knew his business could be better, but his strength as a mechanic, he couldn't use that to figure out how to take his business to another level. So he's running his business exactly like every other automotive shop in the city. After a few discussions, he decided, okay, I'll give lean a try. We applied for a grant, it was approved, and we taught him and his staff on the various lean tools. And if I can jump ahead to now, his business is thriving. Competitors are after him to figure out how he did it and try and duplicate it. He's making more money and expanding. In fact, his business has tripled. Staff morale is at an all-time high. And he went from 3 bays in the old shop to 10. And he was just recognized last year as the business of the year in Kingston. And it's been written up, I guess, just as an aside, in several automotive news magazines. So my point is, with that example, without the grant dollars, he couldn't have done it. And without lean, there's no way he would have been able to transform his business and drive it to the level that it's at and still going. So this situation is typical of the companies we work with. And I just wanted to throw that out there that, you know, when we work with companies, we're not looking at 1% and 2% improvements. You need dramatic improvements. So I'll leave it at that. And Julia, hopefully that quick summary, tried to do it as quickly as possible, gives you some information and background on lean advisors.
Great. Larry, thanks for the insights and giving history or people some background as to why we're in this business or why we're talking grants here and productivity grants specifically. I think I before we open it up to the audience, I had a quick question, Larry. Maybe you can give us a little bit of understanding of the business environment and why, you know, I know this lean is important and we all understand the value of this, but why is it even more critical in today's business environment? You can shed some light on that.
Yeah. To me, the obvious statement is the last couple of years have been devastating, especially to smaller business. You know, they're finding it difficult to hire staff. The economy is in free fall. In fact, I think we're headed towards a recession. I only read what everyone else reads. Maybe we're already in one. Supply chains are unreliable in all products that we bring into Canada and across Canada. Government's raising taxes. Energy prices are going up. In fact, I think gas just went up 15 cents a liter today. You know, all of this has an impact. In fact, it's not just on business, it's on our everyday lives. So the world has changed, and it always changes. I get that. But over the last few years, this has been pretty dramatic, and it's still going on. Now we're getting hit with the results of the last 2 years, and it's going to be very difficult. So my thinking is, if it's changed, then businesses have to change. You can't continue doing what you did in 2019. So dismal economy outlook, you don't have a choice. You either adapt or you slowly evolve and move off to the side. You have to do more with what you have. I think that's a common statement that we hear. Smaller businesses do not have the capital to spend a lot of money to grow. They're struggling. So they got to do more with what they have. And as I said before, to repeat myself, do it better, faster, and less cost in order to survive, compete, thrive. So I encourage everyone, don't wait. Use these grants. I understand it's a limited amount of money that they have in these grants, so get in there. And by the way, if I can be bold, it's your money. You pay taxes, that's where it's coming from. You're really getting it back to allow yourself to grow. So talk to us. We'll help you out. Julia has explained that, you know, that paperwork burden that we've been all scared of. Even when I was in business, I didn't want to go near government applications and so on. I get a knot in my stomach trying to fill out paperwork. We've now got expertise that takes care of that. So take advantage of it, make it happen, and let's drive this economy. Does that answer? That was a long answer, sorry.
Yeah, well, I mean, it, you know, it started with a bleak picture of our economy, which kind of, you know, we all hoping for, you know, a change, but you're absolutely right. Without the change, you can't be doing what you've been doing. The same thing doesn't work, right? If the environment changes, we have to adapt and change. And so I can certainly see why lean as a tool, as a thinking methodology is even more prevalent now than ever before, in order for companies to survive and stay competitive. So thank you.
Yeah, and if I can just add, Julia, you reminded me of something. This doesn't take years to make the change. Don't bother doing lean if you're going to drag it out over years. This should take weeks, at the most 2 months, 3 months, to have a real impact on your business. And that's important. So anybody that's on this call, this is something that happens quickly if you follow the methodology properly. So
yeah, that's a good point, Larry, because I think some folks or some people you know, have this maybe fear of, you know, this may take too long, or it's we don't have time for this. It's another excuse that you hear sometimes, right? So so I think this has been great. I hope we've covered a lot of the stuff. I'm sure people have questions, you know, and I want to open it up to Q&A. You know, just if you guys put some stuff in the chat, I can check in there, but you know, you feel free to ask any questions if you'd like. Just unmute yourself. Any questions from the audience?
I had a question for some people if they feel comfortable enough. I'd love to know the businesses that they're from. I think we got kind of where they're from, but
yeah, anybody wants maybe go around, I wanted to say around the room and maybe say what business you're from.
I can start, Julia. So I'm the executive director of the Center for Arthritis Excellence, which is a not-for-profit, and we're funded fully by the Ministry of Health. So it will be interesting to see down the road if we follow up on any grants, whether that's possible or not, because basically they have ensured that, or so far told us that basically any funds that they provide are the funds to operate. If there's additional revenue, then we have to pay back.
Interesting.
We should have a chat about that.
Yeah. That's okay. Well, that's a great introduction. And certainly, as you mentioned, you guys are not for profit. You are eligible for these type of funds for running other things outside of your day-to-day operation. Yeah. Anyone else? I can see Evelina is from the Velbix film industry. Anyone else here that would like to introduce themselves? No? I had a question. I actually had someone that couldn't make it to the webinar, but there was a question, so I'm just gonna put it out there. Maybe myself or Larry, I guess we can respond to it. And the question was, you know, in terms of the productivity improvement programs, how how do you integrate these lean thinking and concepts in a day-to-day operation when the staff are, or when we're already overwhelmed and very busy? Where do we find time for this? Basically, that's, I think, what the question is about. Larry, do you want to try to take a?
Yeah, sure. We've never found an organization that wasn't busy. Everybody's busy. Everybody's working at 100%. This just has to be important to them, that they realize if they don't make the changes, they'll never maximize their capabilities. And so the leadership, management needs to understand, yeah, it does take time. But that being said, we don't come in and pull up a chair beside you and spend weeks and weeks with you. We come in and we spend days over the next month or two where we come in and we do work with you, training with you, then we leave you with maybe some homework. Not terrible homework. It's not going to be a test or anything, but we leave you with things to get done. And in your time, you get that done, we come back. So we keep injecting ourselves in, and our schedule, we work around whatever the organization needs. We're not going to come in and say, you have to do 5 days in a row now. No. What can you do? And there will be sessions that have to be a little longer, but normally sessions can be broken down either into half days or 1 day, sometimes 2 days in a row if you can handle it, but it's what you can handle. And remember, it's not everybody doing it at the same time. So you can't shut the operation down. And we get that. It'd be, we'd be remiss in walking in there and saying, okay, well, you can shut the front door and we'll do training. We work with the management of that company and figure out what's the best schedule. So they're part of that decision making.
Right.
Does that answer that?
Yeah, I hope it answers that questions for folks. I think it's really, you have to experience it as part of your natural evolution in the company. So as Larry said, we take it in small chunks and small pieces, working through trainings, we're very flexible. We may do smaller, instead of 1 to 2 days at one time, right? We break it down into, say, 2 hours or even half a day increments where we work with certain teams or groups on training and developing them and working on specific areas of initiatives that they're things that they're looking to make improvements on. So very adaptable and flexible. Yeah, sorry, go ahead, Larry.
No, you keep giving me time to think after, and that's good. Should also mention, some of our training is online. We have online modules for certain training, and that can be done. The senior team I work with, Julia, you and I have, they've become very good at doing virtual training and coaching. And, if there's anything positive came out of COVID, we learned to do this a little better. And so it's become effective. And so usually the training is a bit of a hybrid, could be online, virtual, on-site, or a mix of all three of those. So that's the other way that it can be massaged to fit unique situations, because there is no cookie cutter to this. Everything you do has to be adapted.
Yeah. So that's good. Anybody else has any comments or any questions?
Julia, it's Rory here. Just could you clarify about what specific activities are eligible? Because it's about training, not consulting, but training can be classroom training. It could be workshops in the classroom. It could be planning the Kaizens, how to plan your future state, all those sorts of things. But I understand that it's not actually, say, helping with a 5S in a manufacturing facility. You can't do sort of hands-on stuff, but maybe that is eligible now. Can you clarify the sort of boundaries of what's applicable here?
Yeah, so thanks for the question, Rory. So you're absolutely right. In terms of the training is certainly available in all different formats. Now, in our productivity improvement programs, as you know, because we're training on various tools and methods, how to apply lean thinking and lean tools, whether you're doing redesign of your facility or whether you're managing your inventory and trying to create the flow, whatever those different activities may be. Or just making your team meetings more productive or daily stand-ups or whatever it is. So we give you the tools and training tools. Some of the certifications that people like to get that we provide with the training, there's different levels of lean certifications that folks get, which goes from white, yellow, green belt and then onto the black belt. It requires for staff to actually show how they have applied lean, how they applied the thinking, how did they apply tools in their day-to-day work or in specific projects. So having said that, that's where we help them to get to the certification level, which those activities are covered, meaning we give them the specific tools or we train them on specific tools or help guide them as to what tools might be applicable in what they're doing in, say, specific area that they're improving on. And then they have to show that they understand they can apply those tools. And then we take it up it's like taking a homework, applying it, coming back to your coach and trainer, and then showing what you were able to apply and then tweak it or get some insights as to how you can make it better. And all those activities that lead to getting the certification, it's part of your training. Your training is to ensure that you can apply it in order to get certified. So that's sort of the extent of what activities are covered. We don't go and do it for you. We help you and guide you to do it.
If no one else says
Does that
it,
answer?
just to clarify a few things. Part of the challenge with getting the transformation on the change on is the whole getting people on board, the change management side. Not talking about design control, change control, but the people side, the engagement of people, getting them on board with the actual changes so they help to own the change. And that's part of lean, of course, and it's part of lean, the lean training. So that is included as part of the way we do things and the way we train managers and people there to get their employees on board with the training. Just clarify that. I think that's probably a legitimate concern on some people's part.
Yeah, thank you. Actually, thank you, Roy, for bringing up. So when we say actually lean thinking or lean training, yes, we don't mean necessarily just training people on the technicalities or technical side of tools. It's about cultural change. So we always say lean transformation. It's both operational and cultural transformation. And part of our trainings, we incorporate actually into the trainings, the change management principles and concepts, because as you know, a lot of our trainers have the change management certifications and experience. We also incorporate all kinds of leadership development trainings as well, because certainly, for getting, people's buy-in or for getting people to kind of be able to move to the next level, there's soft side of human nature that needs development as well. And so through our facilitative trainings and when we plan Kaizens and so on, we develop certain champions internally in the organization. So, not everyone in your company will become a lean green belt, certified, but certainly a few people that will want to see the change or want to drive the change. We help them to not only get certified, but what we call it kind of train the trainer. So we help them to come along through this program in order to become those change agents internally and to be able to get those things, cultural changes happening as being internal champions. Larry, anything you want to add to that, or?
I'm not sure I'm adding to it, but it's something that I would like everyone to be able to take away. And maybe we said it, but I'll just clarify or say it again. There isn't a situation that lean can't fit into. Every situation has processes. And the people that Julia and I work with in our team, the senior team, we've thrown them into some pretty wild situations, and it has worked every time. You know, don't be thinking, oh, this is manufacturing. This is not manufacturing. This is any organization that has processes, and quite honestly, I don't know an organization that doesn't have a process. I know organizations have a lot of broken processes, but they do have processes. So don't be shy about, oh, you know, I don't think lean would fit here. I encourage you to talk with one of our people or whatever and find out, because it does fit in every environment and it works. When done properly, it works.
Yeah, and it's thanks, Larry, to adding to that. Just reminds me how sometimes we have a new client in a new industry or a different industry, and usually they say, well, what do you know about our industry, or how can you really help us?
Yeah.
And I think their perspective changes quite quickly, especially when one of our very experienced, all of our teams are highly experienced in various industries. When we have a team member actually come out to their facility or their operation and go around with them and talk to the management, the things that somebody from outside of your organization can see that perhaps when you are inside the company, you run in a certain way, you may not be thinking about, but when you're bringing someone with that kind of expertise in lean thinking, who has seen many companies and many industries, there's an interesting perspective or outside the box, you know, view or perspective that you may not even grasp just by, you know, being busy with running day-to-day operations. So certainly we don't need to be experts in a specific industry or in your specific industry, because processes are in any company, in all the industries. You guys are the experts in your own industry, and we help you to use the best practices from, you know, our experience and from other industries or very similar industries to help you to get better. So
right. And lean has to be integrated into what you've already done. It doesn't, we don't throw it in as now it's a new flavor of the month. All our group goes in and we figure out, what have you done before? Very quickly we figure that out. And we use that as the basis to now take you to the next level of thinking, using lean and the structured way to go about creating change. So, you know, a lot of the organizations are worried about flavor of the month. Oh yeah, we've done that. We did that before, whatever. This is about integrating the thinking into what you've already done and building on that. So all the accomplishments and the successes you've had, we're not throwing those out. We're building on those with lean and taking it to the next level.
yeah. I just actually noticed we have Santina, just saw another message from Wholesale and Grocers Supply Chain Solutions Industry. So any questions, Santina? I'm just thinking it's logistics is something very close to our heart.
No, I have taken down your your email information. I will email you shortly after this call.
Sure, that sounds great.
Yeah, and Rob, on healthcare, we started lean in healthcare. So a little Canadian company started lean in healthcare. It's way back in 2002. And our first client was Mayo, the Mayo Clinic, which is not the one I would have picked.
A small Canadian company started with a big American private clinic. Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, so that's so Santina, feel free to reach out with any questions. Anything else before we break apart? I know we have 10 minutes left, but I'm sure everybody wants to take a few minutes in the day if they have them. Questions? No. All right. Well, it was a pleasure having all of you joining us here today. if any questions, feel free to email myself, and then if you want to speak to Larry, I'll connect you to Larry as well. Certainly encourage you to speak to myself and Larry, especially with all his experience and expertise over many, many years. There's a lot of words of wisdom or even thinking that you may be, struggling or thinking about how we should do or what should we do, that I'm sure you want to just, have a conversation with Larry. I'm sure there's going to be some clarity just from having that call. So
yeah, I love the conversations, as you can tell. So it's not like you're calling to say you're going to use Lean Advisors. I enjoy the conversation. So just call. Let's discuss.
Yeah. So thanks, everyone. We have recorded this, and so you will receive recording in the next little while. And if you think any of your colleagues or any other companies, your partners or customers that you work with that you think might benefit, you can feel free to pass over the recording as well. So take care, everyone, and have a great Thursday afternoon.
Thank you both.
Thanks, everybody.
Bye.